Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome back to my next guide to the 2022 midterms video. So today we're going to be continuing my video discussing the competitive Senate races this year. Uh, we started off last time with the state of Utah, which should not really be competitive, but is competitive because of Evan McMullen running against Mike Lee. I'll put the link to that in that video in the description below. So today we're going to be continuing this series talking about the Senate race in Wisconsin. And so, I know that I'm not really, going in a certain order here, but I didn't really want to talk about races like Ohio or Iowa yet because other people are covering them. And I've been watching those videos, and I'm just kind of like, you know what? I'll do some of the other competitive races first, and I'll get to those eventually. So, in the state of Wisconsin, if you don't know, Wisconsin is a very, very competitive state. Pretty much on, every form, pretty much on the statewide level and pretty much in every, presidential election. It has pretty much always been a swing state. And in 2020, Joe Biden won the state of Wisconsin by 0.63%. And Wisconsin had traditionally been a Democratic state going back to 1988 when Michael Dukakis won the state by about 4 points over George H.W. Bush. In 1992, Clinton won it by the same amount. In 96, he won it by 10 points. In 2000, it was very narrow. Gore barely won the state in a very close election year. John Kerry slightly expanded Gore's margin in 2004, but it was nowhere near a landslide. In 2008, it was a landslide practically, though. Barack Obama was able to win Wisconsin by 14 points over John McCain. This was pretty much the height of Democrats' appeal in the Rust Belt. In 2012, the margin dropped to about 7 points, significantly worse. But Mitt Romney was a much better candidate for the state of Wisconsin, but Obama was still able to hold on even though Romney's running mate, Republican Congressman Paul Ryan, was from the state of Wisconsin. But in 2016, there was a big change in the Rust Belt. Wisconsin unexpectedly went for Donald Trump, and at the same time, it went on the Senate level for Republican Senator Ron Johnson. Now, Johnson was first elected in 2010 and is running for re-election in 2022. In 2010, he defeated the Democratic incumbent Russ Feingold in a very good year for the Republican Party. He won by 5 points, but he faced problems of unpopularity, serious unpopularity in the state of Wisconsin, and Feingold came back to challenge Johnson in 2016, and polling looked very good for him. If you go back down to polling in this race, you can see he was pretty much leading, except for a few outlier polls. I mean, not really outliers, but as you can see, blue across the board. This race, the GOP pretty much abandoned by election day because they figured they weren't going to win, just like polling had suggested that Hillary Clinton didn't really have a chance of losing Wisconsin to Donald Trump. Yet Johnson and Trump not only won Wisconsin, but particularly Johnson won by 3 points against Russ Feingold. Now this is an issue of candidate quality in a way, because Russ Feingold, while he was popular in years past, repeat candidates almost never win the same offices that they have that they had previously. Let me think of another example. In the state of Maine, Paul LePage right now is running for a third non-consecutive term against Janet Mills in the governor election. I don't think he's going to win. It is going to be close, but that's a topic for another video. But Ron Johnson and Donald Trump were really able to outperform the polls in Wisconsin. And Wisconsin's polls in recent years have been very, very bad. They expected in 2020 for Biden to win the state on average. Biden was up on average in Wisconsin on election day 2020 by 8.1 percentage points. and he won it by less than a percentage point. So you can see there's a huge difference in the state of Wisconsin's polls when compared to a lot of other states. Polls do typically overestimate Democratic support, but Wisconsin is particularly bad with their polls in recent years. So let's focus on the Senate race itself. So, in the state of Wisconsin, this is going to be a very competitive and close election. And, Ron Johnson is the Republican incumbent. The Democratic nominee is Mandela Barnes, who's the current lieutenant governor of the state of Wisconsin, declined to run for re-election with Tony Evers. Um, Tony Evers is facing off a pretty strong challenge from Tim Michels in the Wisconsin governor's race, which I will talk about eventually. Um, but Johnson originally in 2016 was able to, he said that if he was, if he was to be reelected, it would be his last term. And he kind of walked that back in 2021 and said that he was not really sure how he was going to, how he was going to, um, what his fate, I guess, in the Senate would be, whether he would run for a third term or not. And we pretty much played the waiting game with Ron Johnson for about a year. And as it came longer and as it went on longer and longer, I started to realize that Johnson was running for re-election. It was just a matter of when would he announce it. He announced it in about I think it was January 8th or January 7th. January 7th, yeah. So Johnson's running for re-election, and he is deeply unpopular in the state, but he's still he's in a much better position in terms of approval rating than he was in 2016. Which is somewhat surprising due to the investigation investigations into the January 6th insurrection and Johnson's role in that. If you don't know, the January 6th committee has revealed that Johnson was or he attempted to give former Vice President Mike Pence uh I guess certain what was it envelopes of fake electors from the states of Wisconsin and Michigan, both of which voted for Biden, albeit narrowly. Um, and so Wisconsin, Wisconsin's going to be a very competitive race this year. Mandela Barnes is I've seen a lot of flack being thrown at sorry, I cannot speak today. Um, I've seen a lot of flack being thrown at Barnes. And that a lot of people on the right have called him too progressive to win in the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin's a right trending state, and while both of those assumptions are somewhat true, Wisconsin is definitely moving to the right. Barnes is not someone who is doomed from the start. Johnson's a very unpopular incumbent, and Mandela Barnes, while he may be a little too progressive and not really reaching out to moderate voters, which is something I've criticized him for, um, I think that he does have a fighting chance in this race. I think that this race will be, as Politico puts it, one of the uglier races of 2022. I think Wisconsin's not going to be as competitive as, say, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, Pennsylvania, possibly even New Hampshire, but Wisconsin is still going to be a swing state. This is not a safe Republican state. That would be ridiculous to see on the map. And there was a pretty hotly contested Democratic primary. Of course, eventually, Johnson didn't face really any opposition in his Republican primary. He got like one opponent and he wiped the floor with them. But I think the issue, so in the Democratic primary, his Johnson's main challengers were Sarah Godlewski or Lewski, and she was, I believe, was she the state treasurer? Yeah, state treasurer of Wisconsin. And she was seen, someone as a very good candidate for this race. And at the beginning of the race, it looked like Barnes was, the presumptive nominee. He was wiping the floor with all these candidates. Alex Lazary was, of course, was a businessman, I believe, who was running who was running in the primary as well. And Tom Nelson, I believe, was a county executive. And so but around the springtime, this race started to get increasingly competitive between Barnes and Lazary. But in the end, what ended up happening, just about like 2 weeks before the primary, first Nelson withdrew from the race and endorsed Barnes, which took him out. Then Lazary withdraws, and so that pretty much made it a dead heat between Barnes and Godwilewski. And then she drops out, and that pretty much made this race pretty much guaranteed to go to Mandela Barnes. I still thought he would be the nominee from the very beginning, but there was some concern, I guess, among Democrats, or I guess according to some of these hypothetical polls. Let me bring them up. Against um, Ron Johnson against Lazary won by 3 points, which Wisconsin's already a more a state that overestimates Democrats, so for him to be down in these polls already is not a good sign. Tom Nelson could have presented a good challenge, and so would Godlewski would have. And Barnes will too. But the thing you have to remember is the Wisconsin's polls extremely and very often underestimate Republican support in the state. Did it in 2016, did it in 2020. 2018 was an exception. They expected Tammy Baldwin to win by around 15, sorry, 10 points or 11 points. She won by 11. So that was an exception, but polls in 2018 were pretty much accurate across the board. And and also Baldwin had a pretty bad Republican challenger, and so it was really hard for polls to overestimate or to underestimate the I don't know where I'm going. I'm just kind of talking um out of thin air here, but anyways, my point is that Baldwin had a much easier race, and the problem with Barnes's campaign is the fact that he's making it so nationalized, unlike John Fetterman in the state of Pennsylvania, who is progressive but is running on a more the guy for Pennsylvania, and he doesn't really, bring up the fact that he's a Democrat 24/7. He doesn't reiterate standard Democratic talking points all the time. You see, not even like Tim Ryan in Ohio, who's appealing to Trump voters and saying, I voted with Trump on trade, or I voted with him on this issue or that issue. He's not even Sherry Beasley in North Carolina, who's doing a similar thing, appealing to the working class. Val Demings, I would argue, is, possibly a better candidate than Mandela Barnes, but of course, Florida is a state that's not going to be very competitive this year. Wisconsin is for sure going to be more competitive. So, in terms of predictions, most of the people, or most of the news organizations or political organizations, have the race leaning towards Johnson or a toss-up. And I pretty much agree with that. I would put the state in the lean R category, the lean Republican category, because Democrats can definitely beat Johnson. It is so doable, but Johnson has what I would call a silent coalition, and what I mean by that is you don't really see that in these polls. Already in a state that's pretty much it's very generous to Democrats in polling, and that's putting it lightly. We've seen a lot more polls come out of the state. We've seen Marquette put out two polls. One both of them showing Barnes leading by 7, and then this one by Fox News, showing him leading by 4, and, with a majority of the vote. And that is not a good sign for Ron Johnson, which, may suggest that Barnes is doing better than expected. I mean, he's doing better than I expected. I expected him to be leading in polls, but not by this large of an amount. But still, he would have to be up by 9 or 10 points on election day to actually be able to defeat Johnson. We've seen time and time again, with very few exceptions, that Wisconsin's polls overestimate Democrats, and that um you know it's becoming harder and harder for Democrats to be able to edge out victories. I think Tony Evers will probably lose his governor's race, but we'll get to that in another video. So I'm gonna try to make a county map for the state, and I'm gonna do one also. Oh, wrong one, wrong bookmark. Sorry, I have a lot of bookmarks. Um, first of all, I forgot to make a county map for Pennsylvania, so let's do that really quickly, and then I promise I will. Uh, There you go. Sorry, I would have done. I was gonna do this last time, and then I forgot. So, you know, if you were watching the. Oh wait, I haven't done Pennsylvania yet. What's wrong with me? I'm not doing Pennsylvania. Oh, I am silly. Here you go, Utah. So I think in Utah, if you're watching my video yesterday, not that county. Okay. Takes forever to fill in this county map. There you go. If you're watching the Utah video, there you go. There's the county map. Okay, getting to back to where I was. In Wisconsin, I think the main problem for Barnes is that even though he's an African American candidate and he'll get good turnout from the Milwaukee area, it's going to be very hard for him in Western Wisconsin. And I think a lot of people don't really talk about that. Let me look at how the county map was last time. Just want to make sure. Hold on. Sometimes I forget. Yeah, you probably win that county. I forget the names of some of these counties, so yeah, it's not gonna win that one probably. Hmm. Uh, let's see. The election were held this day. This is probably where I put most of the counties. Okay. So as I was saying, I think that Johnson's going to have, or Barnes is going to have a very hard time appealing to the more white working class voters that Johnson has been able to, appeal to. Again, his silent coalition. Even though he's very unpopular in the state of Wisconsin, and no, I've seen a lot of determination from Democrats that just want him out, and they want him out badly. Believe me, I do too. I am not a big fan of Ron Johnson, and I will be endorsing Mandela Barnes in this race, because I do lean towards the Democratic Party personally, but I do not think he's going to win. Let me fill that in. I forgot about that. So, here is the county map for the U.S. Senate election in Wisconsin this year. Door County, which is this county right here, is a swing county. Pretty much, it voted for Trump in 2016, Biden in 2020. It pretty much decides the election. Not always. Tony Evers lost the county in 2018, but won regardless. And so I think that while Barnes can do okay with some white working class voters, he's going to underperform Biden. People are going to see him as too radical. He's said some things about he's made some comments about how he believes the founding of America was terrible and racist, which I mean, I'm not going to get into that on my channel, but essentially it's not really going to do him very well with the white working class voters of the state that are more they're ancestral Democrats, but they have been trending Republican, and they're more moderate in their views. So yes, so this is my county map, and I have Wisconsin on my Senate map right here as a lean Republican state. I think a lot of people are counting out Mandela Barnes right now. I think you can get good Milwaukee and Madison turnout, but I just don't see him doing very well in the more rural, northern parts of the state, especially Door County. I think he's not going to do very well there at all. And so, yeah, that's pretty much gonna do it for this video, guys. Hope you enjoyed, this video talking about the Wisconsin Senate race. Like the video. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, or hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, check it out, turn on notifications so you don't miss another one of my videos. Check out my non-political channel, Interactor127, where I do some more reaction videos and less, um, political stuff. And yeah, also check out my comrade on YouTube, GrowlingZeus666. He makes some pretty interesting videos as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya.